Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Amelia Proclaims Liberty. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, I want to share some very exciting and encouraging things that have been happening in our society over the last few weeks, and it has to do with the sports arena, which I don't talk about very much. I'm not athletic at all, and trust me, I have tried. But I am not athletic. I'm not good at it. I'm more musically and creatively inclined. But I'm going to talk about sports today, but not specifically how to play specific sports. I'm going to talk about the athletes themselves and some really encouraging things that they have been saying over the last few weeks that you no doubt have heard about. The first one we're going to talk about is Sophie Cunningham. She is a player on the WNBA team Indiana Fever, which, if you've listened to this podcast before, you know that I was born and raised in Indiana. I spent the first 22 years of my life in Indiana. Now I live in North Carolina, but I'm very excited that this story is coming from my home state of Indiana. Sophie Cunningham, a few weeks ago, was interviewed by ESPN, and in this article that they released with the interview in it, she made some very strong statements about protecting girls' sports and protecting girls in the locker rooms from biological men. That is so encouraging coming from a celebrity basketball player, a pro basketball player. And as you can imagine, she has been getting the heat ever since. That was about 2 weeks ago, and she's been getting so much support, but she's been getting so much hate. There have been protests outside and even inside of her games. She has not been backed up very much by fellow players and coaches, which is very discouraging. I'll probably get to that more in a moment. But the encouraging thing is that this professional basketball player would unapologetically state her opinion, state her beliefs, even if they aren't popular, even if they aren't the most widely accepted views in our country, at least by the loud people, at least by, the elite and pop culture and the sports culture. But she said it anyway. That is so encouraging. And it's so encouraging to see how much support she's getting. Yes, she's getting protests. Yes, she's getting a lot of negative press, but she is getting so much support as well. There have been people outside and inside of her games holding up signs saying that they love her and that they stand with her because she is saying what so many people are afraid to say. And we've heard over and over again, this is an 80-20 issue. But unfortunately, the 20% is so extremely loud. But she didn't let that stop her. And this is a lesson to us that we should not let that stop us either. Like I said, 20% of America roundabout think that it's okay for biological men to go into women's restrooms and locker rooms and private spaces or be able to play sports against them. That means 80% don't believe that. But because that 20% is so loud and so intimidating, and they will cancel you or try to discredit and cancel you, that 80%, so many of them are so afraid to stand up and to speak the truth. But Sophie Cunningham was not afraid. And then the next day, she doubled down. Even after some of the negative reactions, she doubled down and did not apologize for what she said. Take a look at what she said.
On that same vein, in that story with ESPN, you talked about wanting to protect young girls who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that?
I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense. And I think I'll always believe in that. I think it's really important to protect children, and that's little girls who are also involved in that category. And so I stand on what I said, and I always believe that.
Yeah. Do you see your advocacy on that, taking any form going forward?
I don't know. I'm not a very political person, but I do have beliefs. I have morals, and I'll always stand on those and be true to who I am. And I think people are going to take it how they want to take it, but I've never even really said anything about that. And so when it comes just to protecting young girls in sport and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that. I think that's why you have Title IX. That's why you have some of the greats in women's sports. If Title IX and women's sports weren't protected, then you wouldn't hear about any type of women in sport. And so I think in the future, it's just really important to protect.
Do you think, I guess, along the line like that, it goes against perhaps, some people might say, hey, for the trans community, this could be something that could come back on us or be targeted against us. How do you, I guess, view that sort of critique?
Like I said, I extend love, and I don't dislike anyone. Like, I think there is room for absolutely everyone here, and I think there's room to love everyone. And I truly think when you get people in the same room and you have conversations, you actually have a lot in common with a lot of people. And so I'm there to love, but I'm also there to love biological women, and I think that there are rights that need to be protected. And like I said, I'm going to stand true to that. I'll never falter in my beliefs in that, but I have never once said I hated the trans community. Like I said, I think there's space for everyone.
Sophie, what about Connecticut today? Tell us a little bit about the game. What are you thinking about Keys or Garden? Brittany, you know her so well.
Yeah, I think it has been so fun. I played with BG for 6 years, and so I know her like the back of my hand. And as of late, she's been playing really good. She's been playing like OG Brittany. And so we have our hands full down in the paint. I really think actually Connecticut is playing really good as a whole. I think everyone's playing their role really well from top to bottom. They don't go out there and do anything outside of what they do. And that makes it difficult. And so, you could look at standings and where they're at in the league, but when you do that in this league, you're going to get beat by 50. And so we have one more game before break, and we cannot take this game lightly at all. And so we have to come out with following our scout, following our game plan offensively, making them play us into what we do. But BG's a load for anybody.
Last one I have, Sophie. How do you, navigate a climate where whatever you say, people are going to say, well, this means you're automatically in this box or this label or that label, politically, morally, whatever?
I really don't care. I know that sounds bad, and I'm not trying to come off like that, but I do think, everyone always is coming at it as a negative. Well, me coming out with that, there's so many people who are coming out with the positive, saying, finally someone has said something. And I don't really look at either side of those, because I know whatever I say, I'm going to get hate and I'm going to get love. And if I'm going to live by the love, I'm going to die by the hate. And that's just not who I am. I beat to my own drum. And so people are always going to have something to say. You could win the championship. You could be the best at whatever it is. And there's still people who are going to hate on you. And so that's just what this world is. So I'm confident in who I am. I'm proud of who I am. I'm happy being me. And I'm going to continue to be that.
Have you always had kind of that mentality when it comes to, people saying things, or is that something you've built and learned to adapt over time?
I think I've always kind of been able to, handle that type of pressure, I would say, and the type of eyes and the type of people who have comments. And like I said, there's going to be some negative comments, but there's also a whole bunch of positive comments too that no one really ever, people hate positivity for some reason. I have no idea why, but there's a lot of positive comments too when it comes to that. And so, it is what it is. Like I said, we're all human. We're no one's perfect here. And so I really don't care what other people have to say. I know who I am. My people know who I am. And hopefully I'm doing them proud and making room for young boys and girls in our world to have a better future than we did.
I just absolutely love this. That was a long clip, but I love the things that she says in it. She says, I have my beliefs and I have my morals. And that needs to be a reminder to us to not censor ourselves. Sometimes I think we cancel and censor ourselves because we're afraid of what people are going to say about us. We're afraid they're going to perceive us a certain way. But we have our beliefs and our opinions. The other side definitely shares their beliefs and their opinions. Why are we not allowed to share ours? So she wasn't afraid. She doubled down. And she even said in there, that's why we have Title IX. We have Title IX so that girls and women can have an equal opportunity in sports. That is just the ironic part that should be such a given. But unfortunately, it's not. That these people who advocate for quote unquote transgender women to be able to play in women's sports when we know they're actually men. They're advocating for men to be able to play in women's sports and most of the time beat them in these sports. They claim to want to smash the patriarchy and claim that they are feminist, but in fact, they're not protecting and helping women at all. And they're actually aiding actual toxic, dangerous, many times men in making women victims, sometimes of abuse, sometimes of getting beat out in sports, sometimes getting hurt in sports. These things are happening, and they're happening more and more. And the same people that are advocating for men and women's sports, like I said, claim they're wanting to smash the patriarchy and that they're feminists, but they're not. They're actually the complete opposite. Those of us who want to protect women's sports are actually more like feminists in this way than the people that call themselves feminist. We are actually standing up against toxic men more than they're standing up against toxic men. So this is very, very ironic. But Sophie Cunningham pointed that out with such grace and such dignity. She said, I don't get involved in politics usually, and I love everyone. But these are the facts. These are my beliefs. These are my morals, and I'm not going to shy away from them. So kudos to Sophie Cunningham. This is absolutely amazing. I hope and I pray that she is surrounded by so many people that support her and love her, that all of the negative reactions, the bad press, and the harassment that she's going to get and she is getting will just slide right off her back, because she's getting so much love and support, because she is doing all of us women and all of us girls a favor by standing up for these things. Like I said, unfortunately, she's getting a lot of negative press, including from her very own head coach. Now, I don't know if she specifically has said anything bad about Sophie Cunningham, but when asked if biological men should compete in women's sports, this is what the head coach of the Indiana Fever said.
What is your stance on men or athletes who test as biological male participating in women's sports? What's your personal stance?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would say that I'm educated enough from a scientific standpoint. I don't ever believe that exclusion is an answer. I just don't.
Okay, wait just a minute. So this grown adult woman who is a women's basketball coach is saying that she doesn't have enough science to be able to answer that question. I want you to think about that for a moment. Up until 5 seconds ago, we knew what a girl was and we knew what a boy was. And we knew that it wasn't appropriate for a boy to go into a girl's locker room or bathroom, or vice versa. We knew that it wasn't appropriate for men to play in women's sports. We knew that they had an unfair advantage over women. Like I said, up until 5 seconds ago, everybody knew this. But now, all of a sudden, a grown adult woman who is a professional coach doesn't have enough science to be able to answer that question. Folks, that should worry us all. A lot of other coaches and a lot of other players have been asked the same question in the weeks following Sophie Cunningham's statement. Actually, the head coach of the Golden State Valkyries was asked a similar question. I want to play for you what she said.
I know you don't have the fever again in the regular season, but coming out of the break, one of the big news stories has been Sophie Cunningham and the protests for her and protests against her. And, they had a national televised game today and Cheryl, wore a shirt, and it's just a conversation. I'm wondering what do you think about it? Do you think that's good for the league? Does it detract from the basketball? Is it just noise? I'm just wondering what your opinion is.
I think, thank you for that question. I think just in terms of how I'm seeing it is, if I could answer with, for me, sports is about belonging. It's about inclusivity. It's about allowing everyone to be their authentic self. I'm big on that just because I have been criticized for my height, for my ethnicity. I've been in those "you shouldn't belong here" many times. And for me, I don't want that space, especially Golden State, to ever feel like that. So I'm all about women, little girls deserving to play, and that includes trans women. So I'm all about inclusivity.
Okay, so you're a coach in the Women's National Basketball Association, and you want to include biological men. Does anyone else see the hypocrisy in that statement? Again, it almost seems like these coaches have a little bit of a script. That's what it seems like to me. There was actually another head coach, the coach of the Portland Fire, and he said this.
What's your stance on athletes who are biologically male participating in women's sports?
Yeah, I mean, my focus as a basketball coach, I be completely honest, I don't think I've ever had to think about that. I'm completely supportive of people from all communities, all walks of life. So that's my stance completely. I'm supportive of everyone in the Portland, the community.
Would you be okay with biological males participating in the WNBA?
I think given my answer already on that question. I don't feel like I need to go deeper there.
All right, so he said he's never really thought about this before. When asked the question, should biological men compete in women's sports? Your instant answer should be no. That's not really something that you have to think about. It's almost like being asked, is murder wrong? You don't really have to think about that question. You just say, of course, yes. You don't have to sit there and think about that. This question, he shouldn't have to sit there and think about for very long either. And he said he really hasn't ever had to think about it, and that he's supportive of people from all communities. You can be supportive of people, you can love people and treat people right without believing that biological men should compete in women's sports. Then we come to Sophie Cunningham's teammate, Caitlin Clark. Now, Caitlin Clark is no stranger to the spotlight. She is no stranger to controversy, as she unfortunately is victimized a lot by other girls, by other women on the basketball court who honestly treat her very badly. But she was asked a similar question, and she was given a chance to stand up for her teammate and to speak truth, but unfortunately, she dropped the ball. Take a look.
I think for us, it's not really a discussion we really have in our locker room. I think it's for leagues and the governing bodies to work with their athletes to find solutions, but our focus is on basketball, and that's what we talk about and how we can get wins, and obviously we didn't do that tonight, so we need to find an area to improve in that way.
Do you have any, reaction to the...
I just answered for you. Thank you. All right.
So it doesn't really seem like Caitlin Clark wants to really answer this question. She tried to answer without really answering. And, and I get it. This is a very extremely intimidating climate that we live in, especially about this topic. But at some point, you're going to have to care more about speaking the truth than being afraid. Just like Sophie Cunningham did. We need people that have a platform to stand up and speak the truth. Like I said earlier, up until 5 seconds ago, everyone knew the answer to this question. Children know the answer to this question. And that reminds me, we all inside of our hearts know what a man is and we know what a woman is. We're born knowing that. Even if we can't explain it scientifically, we know. And that's something that people in society have to unlearn to be able to believe that you can change your gender or that men should play in women's sports or vice versa. You have to unlearn that. And unfortunately, we are being indoctrinated in our society through Hollywood, through the school system, through so many different institutions that we have so many people that believe that you can change your gender and that you can be fluid or you can be two genders at one time. And that is not possible at all. Now, I just want to say right now, I love people that claim to be transgender. There is not 1 ounce of hate in my heart for them. And I know people would probably say that there is, but there truly is not. I love these people. These people are valuable. They have worth and dignity as a human being created in the image of God. God has a wonderful purpose and a plan for their lives. And that love for them will cause me to speak the truth to them. That if you were born with XY chromosomes, you are a man. If you were born with XX chromosomes, you are a woman. And you cannot change that. No matter how much you want to, no matter why you want to, you cannot change that. And so therefore, it is inappropriate for men to be able to go into women's private spaces. It is inappropriate for women to go into men's private spaces. It is very unfair for men to have to compete in women's sports. It is unfair. They have an unfair advantage over women, and women have been brutally hurt in these scenarios. That's not hate to say that, that's truth. And even 20, 30, 40 years ago, our society knew this and understood this. I think about the show, The Little House on the Prairie. I absolutely love that show. I did when I was a kid, and I still do. It's so heartwarming and wholesome, and it's enjoyable, and I just absolutely love it. And I was thinking the other day, what would Charles Ingalls' Pa's reaction be if a biological man was trying to go into the women's bathroom with his girls or with his wife, or try to go in their changing rooms or other private spaces like that, or he was competing against them as a woman, but he was hurting them and having an unfair advantage over them, what would Pa's reaction be? He would not have let that happen. But yet today, we as girls and we as women are supposed to be completely comfortable going into a bathroom that potentially could have a biological male inside. I remember when I was at a restaurant in Charlotte, just up the road from me a couple years ago, and I saw a sign. In fact, it was this picture. I took this picture myself. There was a sign outside the bathroom door that said, you can go to the bathroom that most identifies with your gender orientation. That made me extremely uncomfortable. I made sure to be in that bathroom very quickly because I didn't want a biological man to come into the women's bathroom. But yet today we are supposed to be perfectly comfortable with that. And if we aren't, there's something wrong with us. No, that's just natural. It's natural to not want a man to be in the bathroom with you. It's actually unnatural to be okay with it. You have to unlearn those social norms, those things that are normal because they're biological truths. You have to unlearn those things. But yet we're supposed to be comfortable with that. Girls are supposed to be comfortable with men coming in their locker rooms and changing in front of them and watching them change. That's not normal. In fact, it's unnatural to be okay with that. Women are supposed to be okay with men competing in sports against them, brutally beating them and sometimes hurting them. That's not normal. It's abnormal to be okay with that. We as a society have unlearned what's normal, and we've been indoctrinated from the inside out. That doesn't mean we hate people, not at all. Here's just an example. Everyone knows that snow is white, okay? Snow is not orange, it's not pink. Snow is white. That doesn't mean we hate orange or we hate pink. It just means it's truth. Snow is white. And it's the same thing. XX chromosomes, woman. XY chromosomes, man. That doesn't mean we hate the other sex. That doesn't mean we hate people that are confused about their gender. It's just a biological fact. Girls are girls and boys are boys, and you go to the bathroom, the locker room, and play the sports of your biological gender. That doesn't mean we hate people. It's just a truth. And it should be accepted in our society. And I know that there are people that are genuinely confused and disturbed about their gender. And my heart goes out to these people. I hope and I pray that this confusion and chaos that's going on in your heart is healed and is resolved. Because you are a precious human being created in the image of God, and He created you as the gender you were born as, and He has a wonderful plan for your life. And so I hope and pray that you come to Him and find the peace and the healing and the redemption and forgiveness that only He can give. Please do that today. So please know that we don't hate you. We just want to advocate for truth and stand up for these girls and these women who deserve to have private spaces, who deserve to be able to have fair sports. After all, like Sophie Cunningham said, that's what Title IX is for. Another female professional athlete that has used her platform to speak truth on this issue was Aryna Sabalenka. Now, she is a tennis player from Belarus, and she's currently the #1 tennis player in women's singles. That is amazing. So she is a big name, is obviously an extremely talented tennis player. And the other day, someone asked her a question because the Women's Tennis Association recently instituted a gender test. So each player would be tested one time to find out what their biological sex is to make sure that it's all fair. And so she was asked this question about this test, and this was her response.
The WTA recently announced that, the players will take a one-time gender test. How do you feel about that? The first pro league to go in that direction?
I think it's really important to keep the fairness in our tour, and it's obvious that biologically, right, the men are way stronger than women, so I feel like it would be not really fair for the woman to compete against biological men. So I believe it took them a little while to make this decision, and I support it. But for me, I'm focusing on myself, on my goals, whatever it takes. If they want to test us all, I'm happy to do that. It's pretty fair, and let's keep it that way. Thank you.
I absolutely love this because there was not 1 ounce of hostility or hate in her voice and her response, but she just said it like it was, that we need to protect the fairness of this tour and that she agrees with doing these gender tests. And so I absolutely love that. Here's another person who is famous, who has a large platform, who's probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but she's not afraid to stand up for what she believes and to stand up for what is true. And so I hope both of these scenarios have really encouraged you. Like, there are still people, celebrities and athletes that are in professional sports that are willing to speak truth, willing to stand up for what is right. Many of them are Christians, many of them are conservatives, and they're finally speaking up. They're probably, no doubt, just like us, tired of all of this woke indoctrination and confusion and chaos and unfairness, and they're speaking out. So I am very encouraged by this. All right, so I saw a clip the other day that made me laugh so hard. It's of another athlete, but he's not specifically talking about biological men and women's sports, but rather he's talking about Dr. Fauci and the COVID-19 pandemic. And let me just say, I am absolutely here for it. And that is Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Aaron Rodgers. Now, Aaron Rodgers has been around and been playing football for so many years, and he is still playing football. I think he said that this is going to be his last year. But the other day, he was live on ESPN on the Pat McAfee show, and he was being interviewed. And Pat McAfee asked him a question about his life, about this being his last year in football, and just all of those things. And Aaron Rodgers responded with, "I plead the fifth." Watch this clip.
A couple times today, because you've been very open about coming back for this year, last rodeo, and you talked about your wife saying, hey, have another year. Mike McCarthy being here, obviously a big deal. Can you tell us about the mindset of coming into your last season? Like, that's a real thing, it feels like, because is everything better? Is everything funner? Is everything more awesome? Like, how do you kind of view this year versus maybe the years of the past?
I'm going to plead the fifth.
Okay. Okay.
Like
Gotta love that guy.
Like that absolute coward, Tony Fauci. Absolute coward.
Yeah.
Hey, it's back,
Are
baby.
you kidding me?
Yeah, 111
You got a
times.
pardon and you're in front and you pleaded over 100 times at the White House? What are you scared of, Tony?
Yeah.
I thought you were the science.
Yeah.
I thought you were I am science, and you get up there and you can't answer a question?
Yeah.
What are we doing? And how much time did the network spend at that? How much time did they spend on my responses every week, on my vaccination status, on Taylor and Travis's wedding? Did they do even a minute? Did they do even a minute on Tony Fauci?
No, I don't think I've heard anything.
I bet they didn't.
But on that note.
And there was another scandal this offseason, too, involving a voter for MVP, for Coach of the Year. How much time did your network spend? Where's your Kev? Did your network spend on that?
Network?
I wish I could
How much time did you
Go back
spend?
to Fauci.
This is awesome. Go back to Fauci?
Yeah.
Go back to the coward Tony Fauci and science?
Hold on now.
Who's spending the entire time writing in his diary about how fun it is to be famous? You got to be kidding me.
Okay, so on that note.
What are you going to say about me now?
Debate him,
What are you going to say about me
No,
now?
I got no debate here. You had a 500.
No, seriously, what are they going to say about me now? Now you can't talk about the COVID stuff because obviously it was made, in a lab in China. That's like not even questionable anymore. Tony Fauci is an absolute criminal. I'm on good terms with my family. I'm on good terms with my family. What are you going to say now? What are you going to say now?
I want to let you know. It's been a fun ride for you, I would assume, over the last couple.
It's been a great life and a great career. And it's nice to be sitting on this side now, especially after that coward played the fifth over 100 times.
Okay.
I thought you had a pardon there, Tony. Why couldn't you answer one question the entire time?
Okay,
Why
we
not?
have 4 minutes until the hard out.
Yeah, I got 4 more minutes in it. We can keep this shit going. We can keep it going.
Anything else?
I got at least 4 minutes.
Okay,
Okay, so that was an absolutely brutal takedown of Dr. Fauci. And if you remember, Aaron Rodgers was kind of the center of some controversy during the COVID pandemic because he got COVID-19 and then he had to admit that he was not vaccinated. And he got a lot of heat for that. And then he used his platform to speak out a lot about COVID restrictions and Dr. Fauci and different things like that. in the years following. And so he's been kind of, a heated sports figure over the last couple years. But I absolutely loved everything he said in this interview. And honestly, the host, Pat McAfee, seemed to love it too. And a lot of the other guys up there being interviewed with him. I love how he talked about Dr. Fauci pled the fifth 111 times. He pointed out that he's pardoned, so why would he be so afraid to speak? He also pointed out, what are you scared of, Dr. Fauci? I thought you were the science. And I absolutely loved that because we're all thinking this, okay? I know some of us didn't know exactly what to think at the very beginning of the pandemic and right when the lockdowns were getting ready to start. But it didn't take super long to see that Dr. Fauci was a bad faith actor and that he really wasn't following the science and that he was kind of making himself a celebrity, which has become so clear with the release of these diaries. I mean, this is absolutely insane. I mean, this man caused schools to be shut down, the country to be shut down, churches to be shut down, people to have to social distance, wear masks, not go anywhere for a long time. He tried to force people to be vaccinated. A lot of people were forced to be vaccinated, and those that weren't, a lot of them lost their jobs. People were dying alone in hospitals because their family members couldn't go be with them when they were dying. And nurses were holding up signs to the windows telling family members that their loved ones had passed away. I mean, it was an extremely dystopian, Orwellian time that we lived through. Sometimes I'm still shocked that we actually lived through that and that actually ever even happened. It was honestly such a blur. And is such a crazy part of our history. But in the years following, we've seen Dr. Fauci was such a fraud. He had no idea what he was talking about. In fact, I believe he made it up to control people. I think that's a given. I think that's not even a question anymore. But I love absolutely everything that Aaron Rodgers said. And remember, he's still in the NFL. Okay, and he said these things. So he's not afraid of speaking the truth. He's not afraid of saying these things. He doesn't feel like he has to go along with the narrative because he's worried about his job. And that's the way all of us should be. I know it's hard. We're not always like that. But listen, guys, we live in America. We live in a free country. You can say what you want to say. We have freedom of speech. You have the freedom to believe what you want, to have the opinions that you want, and people shouldn't silence you. And the left loves to silence you. They claim to be the ones of tolerance and inclusion and of an open mind, but really they just are tolerant of opinions that match up with their own. So when people like this go against the grain, I'm sure he's going to get a lot of heat, but I am all here for it because you know what? He thinks Dr. Fauci's a fraud. And I do too. But you know what? He's not afraid to say that on the world stage on ESPN. And Pat McAfee is the host on ESPN, and he was laughing at Dr. Fauci a lot too. Funny story, I've actually met Pat McAfee a couple times when he was a rookie fresh out of college playing for the Indianapolis Colts because I am from Indiana. And so my family and I actually went to the Indianapolis Colts training camp that was not too far from our house a couple times. And it was absolutely so much fun that the players would, after they were done, they would get pictures with you and give you their autographs. So I actually met Pat McAfee a couple times. So I'm actually super impressed that it seems like he is not afraid to kind of go against the grain a little bit on his show either. And so I'm loving seeing all of these individuals that have a international platform whose jobs are in danger, whose popularity is in danger, but they're not afraid to voice their opinions and they're not afraid to speak the truth. I just wanted to share those things with you today because, sometimes it can get so discouraging. You open up social media, you open up your favorite news app, and it just seems like bad news, bad things happening, scandal happening, just more terrible laws passed, more terrible politicians getting in office. And sometimes it just gets so heavy with all of the tragedy and with all of the heartbreak. And so, sometimes we need to share the really good things that are happening in our society because they are. Hope is not lost. Truth still exists. God is still on the throne. Common sense is still circulating in our nation. Believe it or not, a lot of people have common sense, and we need to have common sense too. And we need to get back to the mentality that speaking truth is not hate. Having common sense is not hate. Protecting women is not hate. Speaking against the false narratives is not hate. Now, we have to do it in the right way. The Bible tells us to speak truth in love. If you're all truth and no love, that's not good. But if you're all love and compromise and no truth, that is not good either. There has to be a perfect balance. And I hope and pray that God continues to give me wisdom and you wisdom and on how we're supposed to do that and navigate this culture that we live in. But in the meantime, I just want to say props to Sophie Cunningham and Aryna Sabalenka and Aaron Rodgers for speaking truth and not being afraid to do so. Well, everyone, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Amelia Proclaims Liberty about sports culture. Please share it with a friend or a family member that you think would love to hear it. Maybe even post it on social media if you would like to. Please subscribe on the platform of your choice. I'm on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And maybe even leave a rating and review to encourage other people to listen. I am on social media at Amelia Proclaims Liberty. You can find the links to all my social media platforms and podcast platforms in the description below. And I just want to thank you so much for joining me. It means the world to me because I believe more than ever, we need to use our voices to speak truth about history, about our country, and most importantly, about God's word. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you right here on Amelia Proclaims Liberty next time.